Alrighty, time for our Fiscal Focus segment, as always sponsored by InfoChoice, your choice of information on Australian consumer finance. This week, we're focusing on retirement savings, and it's got us wondering, is it still possible for the average worker to retire by age 50 in this day and age? Well, one person who believes so is Victor Idoko, who's the founder of financial planning firm CFV Services. Victor has a 5-step plan to retiring early, and I'm pleased to say he joins us now. G'day, Victor. Welcome to the Savings Tip Jar.
Hi, boys. Thanks for having me. Good to be on the show, Dom and Harrison.
Yeah, definitely keen on this one, Victor, because I too would love to retire by 50, if not earlier. Sounds pretty simple, when you lay it out in these steps, but what are the steps exactly? And just how much of a sacrifice is it? Because knowing, not everyone wants to maybe put in those hard yards to be able to retire early.
Yeah, that's true. I think one thing I always focus on when I'm dealing with clients is, you balancing the wealth, health, and relationships. I think it all comes together because you generally have to give up something. However, the first plan is just having a plan, which may sound very easy, but that plan has to be detailed. It has to be a smart plan. How much do you want? What are you going to do when you actually retire? What was found with some people is they dream about retiring at 50, but then when they retire, because they were so connected to work, it's actually not as fun as they anticipated that to be. So having that clear plan, when you want to retire, what do you want to do, how much is needed, how are you going to invest your money, where will your money come from? Because generally when you retire at 50, you have about 10 years before you actually access your super. So you should have lots of savings outside. And so just ensuring that your plan is smart and very detailed. That's the first step. When we'll then talk about other steps, is like making strategic investments. Generally for the average person to retire at 50, you need to plan at least 10 years ahead because, on an average income, it's very hard to, pay off the mortgage or if you're still renting, pay the rent and put food on the table as well. So you really need to be very strategic as to, okay, how much can you put away and what can that amount give you in the long term as well? And another step as well is just really understanding your biases. Lots of people have different biases. And, one of the ones I've spoken about consistently is mental accounting. Okay, mental accounting is a bias in which where money comes from dictates how you spend it. Some people spend all your bonus money because yep, it's a bonus money. I've worked hard for it. I spend everything. It's like, well, you should actually be allocating that according to your goals, according to your long-term plans. And if retirement is one of them in, 10 years time, you want to probably put in a chunk of that away into a fund. And, I think the other one as well is just knowing your numbers or getting someone along with you that can actually help you know those numbers. Because, okay, to draw out $70,000 from your investment, and for that to last you 10 years, retire at 50, last you to your 60s before you draw out super, how much should that be? What should that look like in future value terms? All those are key aspects to actually know about.
Victor, I guess with retirement, it's up there as one of those top things to save for alongside, buying a house, buying a new car, maybe having kids, sending them to good schools, taking the occasional trip away to actually enjoy your life as well. So I guess, how do you balance saving for retirement alongside all of these other goals?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, Dom. I think that the main thing is just comes down to living below your means, okay, which is the critical thing. Because if if your after tax income is about $70,000 per annum, if you can really survive on $65,000, you are winning. And that might be you giving up a little bit of things here and there. And, something might be, okay, well, rather than traveling every year overseas, you might travel every other year. Okay. Rather than even having international trips, you might do lots of domestic trips where you just drive down, rent a car, have a good holiday, go camping. So those are things that sometimes people do not think about because you can still have we always say rewarding and fulfilling life. You just have to really live below your means. And if you're doing that, living below your means, you'll definitely be in a position where you can save for the future and retire at 50. So, and I guess one of the things is starting early as well. Like if you want to retire in 5 years' time when you'll be 50. It's very hard to do that on an average income.
For sure. What you said at the top of the podcast, Victor, kind of stood out to me is like a lot of people might feel a bit too attached to their jobs. You know, me personally, sorry, Dom, but I can't imagine being so attached. I wouldn't want to retire at 50 years of age.
You want to do this podcast in your 50s, 60s?
Oh my God.
I think it's been really fun in our 50s and 60s.
Podcast might not even be a thing, you know, when we're 50. But yeah. So what I wanted to know, and you also mentioned that in your response to Dom just then, Victor, is, you know, like the whole sort of lifestyle creep factor. You know, it's very easy to maybe get a tax return or a bonus, or even a higher salary, and you all of a sudden you're buying all these coffees out. Maybe you take a more luxurious holiday, have more dinners out. But what can someone do who does have the goal of retiring at, say, age 50 to really stop themselves from being tempted? Because I think it happens kind of subconsciously sometimes. So what are some what are some items that people can action to actually avoid that lifestyle creep?
Okay, perfect question. I actually love it because I have the answer to that. I think one of the things is, you know, we're very adaptable. You know, if anyone can think about where they are now and 5 years ago, they're probably earning less. And 5 years ago, they were surviving on less. Okay. So Jeremy, what happens is when you start earning a little bit more, you adapt to that higher salary. Okay. So one of the biggest tips and trick you can actually put in place is you want to automate whatever you want to save, and you don't want to use credit cards except you've gone past that behavior. Okay. Because the end of the day is a behavior. So what that means is, for example, let's assume you have to tax income every week is $1,005, and you want to save $200. You transfer that $20 and you automate it. If you're PAYG, if money comes into your account on Thursday, you automate that, and by Friday it's gone into another account that you cannot see. All of a sudden you do adapt to then surviving on just $1,300. Okay. Because most people will not go to the coffee shop if they know they don't have money on your card. And that's why it's very important not to use credit cards as well, because credit cards, you're spending the money before you earn it. So it doesn't actually help, you know. So one of the key things I'll tell people out there, and look, I did this myself. I've been doing it for years. I do it for my clients, is I call it the mechanics of saving or having a spending plan. Put aside what you want to save first, and then you can spend the rest, and don't use credit cards until you've built a good habit around that.
Yeah, it certainly seems like a lot of it is really mindset related. But another thing we often hear about when it comes to saving for retirement is the importance of salary sacrificing into your super, which we hear is, you know, it's obviously very tax effective because you're putting your pre-tax dollars into your super. I think it's only taxed at 15%, as opposed to, you know, the typical sort of marginal tax rates around between 30 and 40%. But you know, as you pointed out, if you're trying to retire by 50, you can't actually access that money in your super for another 10 years or so. So do you have to balance out, you know, putting some money aside just the traditional way and also salary sacrificing?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the key things there is really starting from that spending plan. And we call it the spending plan because some people have a negative connotation to budgeting. Well, it's like, it's your money, so it's your spending plan. You're just deferring spending. So starting off with that $200 example as to you saving that every week, you know, part of that, if you want to retire when you're 50 as well, is maybe putting 50% of that into super and keeping the other 50% as to what is needed for when you finally do retire. You know, the good thing about putting money into super as well is that you get the tax benefits back, you know. So going back to what I said before about mental accounting, when you do get the money back, it's not just for you to spend everything, but, you know, do the same thing where you put some aside for your retirement, put some aside for yourself to enjoy life, and then obviously put some aside into your super as well. So the main thing is just to apportion it, and that way you'd actually have a better outcome versus not doing anything or putting everything into super, and then you get to 50 and there's nothing to spend on but a large amount of money in your super. So it's a balancing act.
For sure. And continuing on the super theme, you know, it's been in the news a bit recently with the currently introduced cap of $3 million. I think that's passed the House of Representatives a couple of weeks ago, I believe. But what's the sort of talk been around in your office or what are clients coming to you with in regards to this topic, especially around, taxing unrealized gains? What's your opinion on that and how it could hamper kind of people having their own retirement goals?
Yeah, so very, very good question. I think the talk about the office is, it really depends on what that person is earning. And, for the average Australian, for you to have $3 million in your super now, you're probably not the average Australian. So, I guess part of that is clients always come and ask, okay, well, this super thing, they know it's beneficial, but they're scared of changes. And I'm like, well, look, generally changes will not take your money away from you. It might just tax it a little bit higher, but the government will always make it more effective for you to put money into super. So I think that $3 million cap is actually a huge, huge amount because, for a mom and dad now to retire at 50, they probably need about $1 million, and then they'll spend $70,000 a year. So if you think about that, just a third away from that $3 million. So it's actually a huge amount for them to so the $3 million is a huge cap, and I feel like anything above then maybe they should be paying a little bit more taxes. However, people in that bracket and these people are some of our clients as well, by the time you reach your transfer balance cap, is not that effective to have all your money in super. That's where things like family trust, investment growth bonds come in handy, and those are things we can put in place as well. I think the main thing is if I'm sitting down with someone and we're trying to understand your goals in 10 years time, depending on where they are, we can put in the right structures to put them in the best position, given whatever the government decides to do with super. So
I guess coming away from those, obscenely wealthy people with over 3 million or so in super, back to the average worker, I guess, early retirement, it's not for everyone anyway. Is it really so desirable? I mean, obviously it sounds really good, but I guess maybe that doesn't need to be the absolute end goal for everyone. Maybe you just aim that by 50, you don't have to work as much as you needed to before because you've got enough saved up and you can reduce your shifts and gradually ease out of the workplace. Some people like work, some people like having a purpose, but we've really appreciated all the tips that you've had to share with us today. But I understand you've also got a new book out, Victor. Did you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So I think one of the things that I've been very excited for this year is actually getting the book out. So that actually just came out a few days ago, which is amazing, and I think it really speaks to the average Australian. It's just seven basic wealth strategies for a more rewarding and fulfilling life. So in here we talk about 7 things you should be doing. I've spoken about some of them, but having a good spending plan, ensuring you're taking care of your biases, and it's reflective as well. When I say reflective, we ask questions that get you thinking, and then we also talk about super and all that. So I think it's a must read for average Australian just trying to understand what they can be doing to get to a good situation. And I think I 100% think retiring at 50 is possible, given good planning, and you just have to do it over time. That's the main thing. And I think many people, even when I sit down with clients, the main thing is actually having the option to retire. What I find is most people will probably go into part-time work, or they'll go volunteer. It's not a absolutely doing nothing stage. So just having that comfort and having the ability to take care of yourself from 50, I think is very crucial.
There we go, Victor. I think that book is available on Amazon. So listeners, if you're shopping around for a new book and you're on Amazon, give Victor's book a try. And it's
That's
not every day.
Present for the kids.
Yes, a nice stocking stuffer for any 10-year-olds out there who are looking to retire. And it's also not every day, Victor, that we've had a few financial planners on and people in that industry, and it's not every day that they kind of give us like a frank and open discussion about what's actually happening within the industry and giving away maybe 1 or 2 industry secrets. So we appreciate this very frank chat. Just thanks for your time on the Savings Tip Jar podcast.
Not a problem. Thanks very much for having us. I think it's amazing what you boys are doing because every tip really adds to that jar, and people can have lots of savings.
Nice. Very good.
So.
Really appreciate it.
I brought it all back.
Thanks so much, Victor.
Thanks so much.